Section 8.2 is graphing f of x equals ax squared plus c. So ax squared is what we looked at in section 8.1, and so now we're adding on another transformation that comes from this plus c. For your learning target, you will be able to use the graph of a quadratic function of the form f of x equals ax squared plus c, and you will be able to translate a transformed graph. So this plus c over here that we're in our core concept is going to either translate your graph up if it's positive or down if it's negative. So for example 1, we're graphing y equals x squared plus c. So it says graph g of x equals x squared minus 4 and compared to the graph of f of x equals x squared, our parent function. So we're looking at this minus 4. So this minus 4 is going to give us a translation down 4. And it's going down because it's negative. So when we're writing the transformation, we're writing down and then a positive 4 because the negative is referring to the direction. So now we're going to make our XY table. And again, we're still going to use the points -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And this time, when we plug in 0, we're still going to be able to get our vertex, but our vertex isn't going to be at 0, 0 because of this translation. So when we plug in 0, we have 0 squared minus 4. 0 squared is 0. 0 minus 4 is going to give us -4. So our vertex now is at 0, -4. Our graph still has symmetry, meaning we're going to be able to reflect or mirror these values across. So we can go ahead and plug in +1. And when we plug in +1, we get -3. And then we can reflect that value over here. And now we can plug in +2. And when we plug in +2, we get 0. So we can plot our points, 0, -4, 1, -3, -1, -3, 2, 0, and -2, 0. And here's our graph. So example 2 is graphing y equals ax squared plus c. So we're going to have that transformation that we were looking at in 8.1 as well as this new transformation up or down. So when we're making our comparison, first we're going to look at this 2 that's in front of the x squared. This is going to give us a vertical stretch. By a factor of 2. And now we're going to look at this +4, which is our new transformation. And this is a translation up 4. So again, because of the plus, the positive, that means that we're going to be translating up. So again, we're going to make our XY table. We're still using the points -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And our vertex is still going to be at 0, 0. So we're going to start by plugging in that vertex. So when we simplify this, we're going to square first, then multiply by 2, and then add 4. So 0 squared is 0, 0 times 2 is 0, 0 plus 4 is 4. So our vertex here is at 0, 4. And then we're going to plug in 1. So 1 squared is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 plus 4 is 6. And then we can reflect or mirror that value across. And then finally, we're going to plug in 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. and then go ahead and mirror that value across. So we're going to plot our points. We have 0, 4, 1, 6, negative 1, 6. And then the 2, 12 and negative 2, 12 don't quite fit, so we don't need to plot those ones on our graph this time. So here's our parabola. So example 3 is translating the graph of y equals ax squared plus c. So it says let f of x equal negative 0.75 x squared plus 1, and g of x equals f of x minus 3. And we need to describe the transformation from the graph of f to the graph of g, and then graph both on the same coordinate plane. So when you're describing the transformation, we're looking at this equation here. So we have g of x equals f of x minus 3. So we're subtracting 3 at the end. So the transformation here is a translation down 3. So this is our answer for the first one. So for the next part, we're graphing f of x, and then we need to graph g of x. So I've made a little table here for f of x, and I use negative 2, 0, and 2, just so I can get whole numbers because of this negative 0.75. So I have the points negative 2, 0, 1, and 2, negative 2. So those are plot here, and this red graph is my graph of f of x. So now I need to graph g of x, and g of x has a translation of down 3. So I can take each of these points and move them down 3 units. So here's my new vertex, and then I'm going to move these side points down 3 units as well. And so now I can draw in my new translated parabola that went down 3 units. So this purple graph is the graph of g of x. So the last part is to write an equation that represents g in terms of x. So if I look at this g of x equation, I have this f of x right here. And I'm going to replace this f of x with what f of x equals over here. So when I write my g of x equation, we have g of x is equal to, now I'm going to plug in my f of x, negative 0.75 x squared plus 1. So I replaced the f of x with what it equals over here. And now I'm going to bring down that minus 3. So now I just need to combine these terms here. So I'm going to get g of x is equal to negative 0.75 x squared. And then when I combine like terms, 1 minus 3 gives me negative 2. So this is our g of x equation in terms of x.